second. So anyways, we'll be talking about Hamilton home prices and that sort of thing. And as if you've been reading the newspapers anytime lately, all the buzz in the newspapers is that we're in the middle of a humongous bubble and the market's about to crash and all that sort of stuff. It's the same story we've been hearing for probably about 10 years now. I'm just going to move this a little bit closer here. Ever since I even got interested in real estate, not even being a real estate agent, every year you hear the same story that the market's going to crash, that we're reaching a peak, the bubble's about to burst, all that sort of stuff. And every year, at the end of the year, they're like, wow, we had a record year and everybody's cool and everybody's doing some stuff. Debt levels are rising, but Canadians are doing a really good job of actually servicing the debt. So they're actually paying down their mortgages a lot faster than they ever did. They're taking advantage of rapid repayment programs and that sort of things available through the banks. They're putting larger down payments down and that sort of thing. First-time home buyers are being hurt, but they're not really being hurt necessarily by the market. They're being hurt by some government programs that have come out, adjusting mortgage rules have made it more difficult for first-time home buyers to get into the market without really having any effect on cooling the increasing prices as it was originally intended. So if you're looking at buying a home in the GTA, most people purchasing homes in the $1.5 million to $2 million range really aren't impacted by the changes to the mortgage rules that happened a year ago or so or more, and the ongoing changes that are happening. Those people have money. So they're coming from a house, they've got some equity in their home, they're using that equity to purchase a new home. So these changes to the mortgage rules, really they're only hurting the first-time home buyers who pretty much all of their down payment is coming from their own personal savings, which is difficult to accumulate, or gifts from parents or something along those lines. But most of these changes to the mortgage rules, really that's where it's having an impact. It's really squeezing out a lot of first-time home buyers in the really hot markets. You got to remember that Toronto is not Canada. Like, there are many places in Canada where the market is not hot. If you look into Ottawa, if you look in the East Coast, if you look at a lot of places in Alberta, Manitoba, the market's not crazy. They're balanced markets, and a lot of these changes that are happening with an eye to tame the real estate market in Toronto and Vancouver is actually having a very negative impact on these smaller communities. It is making it more difficult for first-time home buyers to get into the market, even in those communities, which is not a good thing. This one-size-fits-all solution on a national level really doesn't have the impact that it's intended to have, and generally speaking has a lot of negative impact. If you're looking at the Hamilton market in particular, it's essentially the same story as any kind of economics. It's supply and demand. So if I look at the market watch that we usually get, so if I jump in on the Realtors Association of Hamilton Burlington, this is the market watch that I get every morning. It tells me how many price increases, decreases, and if you look at the new listings, which is this green bar right here, there's about 147 new listings within the last 24 hours, which is great. That's a lot of listings, 147 plus 8 that are back on the market. So there's 155 essentially new properties available to purchase. But have a look down here and you'll see that these three lines here, active, conditionally sold, and no showings allowed, and sold pending, is a much higher number. So you've got 155 new listings on the market, 159 that are sold firm and pending, and another 51, so 210 altogether, that essentially sold within the last 24 hours. So we had 155 properties come onto the market in the last 24 hours, but we've had 210 properties sold. So again, they're either sold firm, there's 159 of those, which means either there was a cash offer placed on the property and it sold, or they've cleared conditions. So they had conditions for financing, they had conditions for home inspection and that sort of thing, and now they've firmed up. So they've gone through their home inspection, they were happy with it, they got their financing, and they waived conditions, and they've made it a firm deal. So within the last 24 hours, 155 new properties available in the Hamilton board, and 210 sold. That's the problem. That's why the market is where it is. We're selling more than we have available. It's supply and demand. If you stretch it out a little bit further and you look over the last 7 days, the numbers are a lot higher. So we get into the green bar, 939 and 51, so about 990 new homes on the market in the last 7 days, but well over 1,000 sold pending, and that sort of thing. So we've got 990 roughly houses brand new on the market in the last 7 days, and that's the entire Hamilton area. Our board covers Niagara all the way up to about Oakville. So within the last 7 days, 990 new properties available on the market or coming back onto the market after having been suspended or something along those lines, and well over 1,000 sold. Sold firm or sold pending conditions and that sort of thing. So again, it's a supply and demand issue. There was an article the other day, some economists did a check out of the market, I think it was in the Globe and Mail, and they were discussing that the real issue is demand, it's not supply. Well, it's two sides of the same coin, so I really don't understand what the issue is, but or how this economist is looking at the numbers. Even if we had a greater supply, so presume for a second that in February 2017 we had 50% more houses come onto the market, but if our demand has gone up by 80%, it's still a supply versus demand issue. It's still basic economics. Even if you take out the foreign buyers, there's a big buzz going around about foreign buyers in our market driving up the prices and stuff. Let's assume for a second that the foreign buyers make up 25% of the entire market. 25%. That's outrageous. I think the number right now people estimate is 5, could be as high as 10 in some areas, that sort of thing. But let's presume 25% of the buyers are foreign buyers. If I get 20 offers on a property, that means 5 of those people are foreign buyers. So if we eliminate them, let's tax them, let's make it difficult for them to purchase properties, we just get rid of them altogether because they just think it's too difficult to come in and buy a property here in Hamilton because of the taxes or Ontario. That still leaves me with 15 offers on this property. 15. That's a lot of competition. That's not really going to have a major impact on the price, especially when you're looking at these things in Toronto where you're reading the papers, and they're always focusing obviously on the most extreme case just to make it grab your attention when you look at the headlines that this property had 150 showings and it had 70 offers and it sold for $300,000 over asking price. This is happening. It is happening in Toronto. It's not every house in Toronto, but it is happening in Toronto. Even if you were to eliminate the foreign buyers from that mix, you're still getting an enormous number of buyers competing over this. And part of the problem, not the problem, part of what's causing this to happen is immigration. If you have a look here in Hamilton, I can see, and this is a little bit older number from 2014 produced by CMHC, but we've had 3,300 new people come to Hamilton due to immigration, not refugees, immigration. 3,300 new people come from out of the country due to immigration. Another 3,000 people come from other provinces. So they're moving here from BC, from Newfoundland, from Cape Breton, from Quebec, and they're coming and they're settling here in Hamilton. So there's about 3,500 people, new people coming to Hamilton in 2014, and that number's only gone up. So we've got 3,500 new people coming into Hamilton from outside the province and from foreign countries, not to mention the people who are coming here from Toronto. Toronto gets about 90,000 new immigrants a year, and a lot of them, after they settled in Toronto, as my parents did, and a lot of people did even back in the 60s, figure that it's just too expensive to live in Toronto. This was what was happening back in the 60s. So then they turned around and they came over and they moved to Hamilton because Hamilton was more affordable. They moved to Hamilton, they moved to London, Guelph, Niagara, St. Catharines, they moved out. And so we're still seeing that migration. It's just being exacerbated by the fact that the supply is so low. And it's not who you think. If you look at this one posting from the Financial Post, these are numbers from 2015, immigration numbers. And if you look here, the largest group of immigrants to Canada in 2015 were Filipinos, people from the Philippines. Over 50,000 people, almost 51,000 people from the Philippines, followed by 40,000 people from India, 20,000 or just over 19,000 from China, and then it goes down from there. Iran, Pakistan, Syria, the United States at 7,500 people, 5,800 people from France, 5,400 people from UK colonies, so Commonwealth countries, and then it goes into South Korea, Egypt, Jamaica, Algeria, Morocco, Vietnam, Afghanistan, Colombia, and even Russia. 2,100 people from Russia. So immigration is a big factor that's fueling a lot of this pricing. We are seeing foreign buyers, but we're not seeing a ton of them. And that is basically what's driving up. It's a supply and demand issue. Probably about 20 years ago, The idea was that Toronto and the surrounding area had a little bit too much supply. So they put restrictions on developers as to where they could develop, where they could build new homes. And that's put a big pinch. So now it's had, again, like most policies, it's had the opposite effect. We have a shortage of supply. There's just, the builders here are building as quickly as they can. They're actually poaching staff from each other and contractors from each other. But once that supply, if you open up the area, new developers will come in, will build the supply. It will take pressure off the system, essentially. If we have places for people to live, the competition is reduced. That's just the way it is. And we'll get back to being into a more balanced market. Having said that, Toronto is an international city. Whether we in Hamilton like to think of it this way or not, because we're a bit jaded, we're it's Toronto, it's just down the road. We've seen Toronto a million times. But Toronto is our New York, is our Manhattan. Toronto is our Paris, is our London. It is an international city. It has 4 major sports franchises. It's got internationally renowned museums and dining, places to live. Schools like University of Toronto is world renowned. Even down the road here in McMaster, we're one of the most cited children's hospitals in the world, and the research facilities are second to none. So there's just a lot of reasons why people want to move to Toronto. I've been to Manhattan, and in my opinion, Toronto is no Manhattan. We don't have the density, we don't have the access to things that they do in Manhattan. It's Manhattan on a smaller scale. But we also have a stable banking system, we have universal health care, we have basic education, we have clean streets, good roads, all that sort of stuff, which is really attractive to people coming from either out of province or out of country. If you're looking at the per square meter price in Vancouver compared to Hong Kong, my friends at Remax China tell me that they're about the same. But if you're buying in Hong Kong and you're being surrounded by smog and you're in the middle of traffic jams that literally can last days, not minutes or hours, days, and you had a choice to live in Hong Kong surrounded by smog where they have billboards with pictures of the sun on them that just to tell you where in the sky the sun is because you can't see it, or you could live in Vancouver. And even if you're in a traffic jam, you're sitting by the ocean side, everybody's relatively friendly, you're moving into a nice clean neighborhood, there's a lot less congestion, schools are decent and all that sort of stuff, where would you choose to live? So that's really what's happening in the markets here. If you have any other questions, please feel free to private message me here. I'll post some of the images that I had in the papers just below as soon as I'm done this broadcast. You can have a look at them yourself. Find me at the Geeky Agent anywhere online, so you can be on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat. Just look up the Geeky Agent. I'll be there. I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Thanks Kelly for mentioning me. Thanks for watching, and everybody else who's tuned in during your lunch hour. Try to do more of these during the lunch hour so you can all have time to tune in and check it out. If you have any questions that you'd like answered in a future broadcast, please let me know. I'd be happy to chat. Or get in touch with me, 289-237-9896. I'm always available to chat by phone, to meet up for a coffee, and answer any questions you might have. As always, I thank you all for joining me, and I'll talk to you soon.